Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, here to preview our second of two conference championship games, and it's the Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. This is part one of part two, and part one is with our Chiefs fan, David Figgins. David, how are you?
I'm all right, yeah. Waiting to see what this weekend brings, but yeah, I'm all right at the moment.
Good stuff. And yeah, of course, this is going to be played at, I believe it's 11 o'clock. It's around about that time. It's the second of the two games anyway. So that's about 6, 7 p.m. Eastern. In Arrowhead, of course, you are the hosts, and that itself must give you that advantage going into it, because we all know what's happened the last few years with the Bills playing the Chiefs. And, once again, you are the host. And how are you feeling? How on nerves? Because I think, when you played the Texans and when you came on for that game, it was very much, you expected to win. But I think whilst you are, I'm guessing, still the bookies' favourites for this game, it seems a bit more 50-50. So how are the nerves? How are you feeling ahead of Sunday?
Yeah, I think the bookies have it at 1.5 in favour of the Chiefs. So it's on the knife edge at the moment. And I think that's primarily because it's home advantage. This is uncharacteristic for me, but I'm uncharacteristically nervous about this game. I think out of the 4 games that we've played in the playoffs against the Bills, this is the most nervous I've been about a game, even though it's at Arrowhead. I wasn't even as nervous last year going into Buffalo than I am this year. So I still think we'll do it, but I think of the 4 opportunities, other than maybe the 13-second game, I think this is probably the best opportunity that the Bills have got to beat Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, the law of averages suggests that at some point they will beat you, whether it's in Buffalo, Kansas City, because we've seen, if you play them time and time again, you can't beat them every time. And I think we all saw I mentioned it in a podcast I was a guest on today, 410 yards, that when Brady and Manning were playing in the same era, every time Brady beat Manning, but eventually Manning beat Brady. And I think at some point I do compare this Allen Mahomes thing to Manning and Brady, because Mahomes for so often has beaten Brady. Has Brady so often beaten Manning, and Mahomes has so often beaten Josh Allen. But I think eventually, like we saw with Manning, eventually beating Brady when he was with the Colts, I think at some point Allen will beat him. I don't know whether it'll be this weekend or whether it'll be another time in the playoffs, but I think at some point he has to do it. So that's got to be, playing on your minds. Bills fans, we've got David Kaprosch too. David's a Buffalo season ticket holder, so keep an eye out for that part 2. He was at that game 3 years ago in the divisional rounds, that 13-second game. So yeah, he'll certainly be having that on his mind as well. But I think one thing you can count on, even if it is not Dave Mahomes, we talked about it a little bit last week, but Spagnuolo seems to me right now to be a most crucial part of your team apart from Andy Reid. I mean, think about basically last year's Super Bowl was pretty much one of Spags' defense. Now, you can look at Mahomes and he made some great plays, and you could look at that game even last week against Texans where he made that one throw where it was you sort of almost, falling down, being sacked, managed to find Kelsey in the end zone.
Yeah.
You think that even if it is an off day for Mahomes or an off day for Kelsey or your running back room, do you think that this Spags' defense could almost be the most integral part of the whole thing that is Andy Reid?
I think they all work off one another. It seems for the last 3 seasons and beyond, the reason that the record's been so great is that when one part of the team isn't necessarily up to scratch for a game or for a particular part of a season, then the other side or one of the sides seems to pick up somewhere. And obviously that wasn't necessarily the case against the Texans, because even though a lot of people have talked it up and the Chiefs weren't great and it was close and whatnot, there wasn't a single point in that game where I felt uncomfortable and I felt that the game was in jeopardy. Whereas This game, but with going back to what you're saying, I think that if the Chiefs' offense is stuttering or faltering, the defense will pick up. But I think in turn to that, if the Chiefs' defense isn't necessarily playing as well, the Chiefs' offense will step up because that's just how it's seemed to be for the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, you think about sort of the early stages of Mahomes' career. You think about the year where it was 54-51 against the Rams, and there was that year where, you know, and I think you even look at the year you won the Super Bowl first time around. I think the defense was often a bit of a worry. I think certainly I remember
Yeah,
I was actually at a Chiefs game that year we won it for the first time that season in 2019. I was at Patriots Chiefs game, and there was a lot of consensus from fans around me that this defense will cost you a championship, and obviously it didn't that year. And then fast forward 3 years, it's been the other way around, and the defense has actually helped win you or played some sort of part. I mean, you can look at that Super Bowl against the Eagles, probably not down to the defense you won that, but certainly the one against the 49ers a year ago, I think
last
certainly.
season, yeah, absolutely.
And I think we'll talk a little bit about the Texans game, but I think like yourself, I mean, we had that point in the game where Joe Mixon scored the touchdown, but I think as soon as Fairbairn missed the extra point, you knew I sort of knew from that point that it was not going to be their day, and I think ultimately it did cost them. But I think even if they had scored that extra point, I do believe, like you say, I do believe it was pretty much going to be with yourselves. We've seen it before, but yeah, Bills is a whole different proposition because as good as as good as the Texas team can be, and we all know the ability of Stroud, he's not Josh Allen, and it is whether it's going to be him and he's not got. I don't think the best wide receiver room around him, but you think about James Cook being a huge threat in that running back room, and I think that's been sort of his or go-to guy, more actually handing the ball to him more than actually any wide receiver. You think about the 16 touchdowns Cook has scored, tied for the most of the season. So, do you think that that's also a big thing to look out for, not just Josh Allen, but also that running game?
To be honest, Josh Allen in the running game is another aspect. So I think, particularly in the playoffs, he's a little bit like Mahomes in that aspect, where, or with an extra level than Mahomes in that aspect, where in the playoffs he seems to use his legs a little bit more to get out of sticky situations. So that's an important aspect, that when we are stopping the run, that we make sure that we stop these Josh Allen scrambles as well, keep him in the pocket, make sure that we close that pocket in and around him. I do think James Cook is an awesome running back. I think, back to what you were saying, a lot of touchdowns scored this year. But conversely, the Chiefs have been pretty good at stopping the run this year. Derrick Henry didn't have an awful lot of yards. I know that was the first game of the season, but Derrick Henry didn't have an awful lot of yards. We've shut down a lot of high end running backs. Maybe not Joe Mixon on Saturday last week, but I think again it's all complementary football. So whatever Spags and Andy Reid deem the necessary evils within the game to win the game, that's what they'll do. So if it means that you let Joe Mixon run for I think it was 126 yards or something like that, you let him run for 126 yards, and if it means that we stuff the run against Cook, and make sure that Josh Allen doesn't have any running lanes when he's dropping deep in the pocket, and then scrambling for 20 yards, 15 yards, then that's that. I guess that's what they've got to do. They are the best coaching team when it comes to scheming within the playoffs, possibly ever. So I think they'll have a plan, and I will back whatever plan that is, because it seems to have worked for the last 5 years. So
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, the Bills weren't perfect in that Ravens win. You think about really the game sort of was won by the sort of the turnover game, and the Bills were faultless. Don't get me wrong, but think about the Lamar Jackson fumble, the interception, Mark Andrews drops, and I think Derrick Henry dropped one as well. And you think about this Bills team is going to have a whole different ball game when it comes to yourself, because you guys just seem right now faultless. I mean, you're 50-2 without really playing that well on offense. You really haven't been, I don't think, clicking on all cylinders, but you did this last year. You won the Super Bowl. You've only lost 2 games. That speaks volumes about the strength of your team and the character and togetherness. And I think they're going to have to be a lot more on their game, because they can't, if the Ravens, they aren't going to be able to capitalize on mistakes like they did against the Ravens, because you guys, in a big game for yourselves, you guys are so, when it comes to this time of year, it's like the Patriots. They always find a way to do when it matters. And I think for you guys, it just must bring you, as a fan who you followed the game for years and years, as you said before in this podcast, where the team weren't very good, some bad quarterback play, and now you're sort of seeing a team where really it's hard to find many mistakes that really have been that crucial to you. Seem to be make mistakes at the right time of year when it's not that important. When it comes to this time of year, you guys just are completely faultless and really don't do a lot wrong, and especially in the Conference Championship Sunday.
Yeah, the turnovers, the Chiefs are incredible when it comes to turnovers in the playoffs. They hardly ever turn the ball over. Even when, like, at the start of the season, Mahomes was a pick machine at the start of the season. I think in the first 6 games he had more picks than touchdowns. I might be quoting it wrong there, but I'm pretty sure in the first 6 games he had more picks than touchdowns. And they were still 6-0. But when it comes to playoff football, it's like everything there's like an uber focus, like a super zoomed in focus, where the Chiefs just play lights out football, like not turning the ball over. But also, to credit the Bills are really similar in that aspect. They also rarely turn the football over, and I think that could potentially be where it's won and lost on Sunday, when or if the ball's turned over. Because I think over the course of the weekend, a lot of the divisional round playoff games were decided on turnovers. Granted, there wasn't a turnover in the Chiefs game, but the special teams had a huge part to play in that. But I think in the other games, turnover battles were a really important aspect. And I think as long as the Chiefs can play turnover-free football, that's where I'll be a little bit more confident. And like I said, when they get to the playoffs, they tend to play turnover-free football.
Yeah, exactly that. I think there's really, you think about last year's moments, think of Mark Andrews will be a moment that will live for a lot of people over the next sort of 20, 30 years. People will look back at that Mark Andrews performance against the Bills. You think about the sort of the Chargers collapse against the Jags a couple of years ago. You think about many other sort of big moments of playoffs that, big teams have had these infamous moments in the playoffs where they look back and regret it. But if I'm honest, I know it's probably because you won a lot, but even in the years you haven't won it, maybe aside from the Bengals collapse in the AFC Championship game, I mean, I can't think of really any big moments where I'm thinking, for the Chiefs, that you've made these big mistakes, these big moments. A lot of time, think about the Patriots defeat in the Mahomes' first year to start. That's just down to being simply just not outplayed, but sort of like just one of those things you can't really help it. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. Both quarterbacks.
Sorry to cut in, but the default offside was a huge.
I forgot about that.
Huge part of that. So the default offside where Tom Brady picked it, and I was dancing around the living room because it's the first Super Bowl that I was going to ever see the Chiefs in, and then it got called back, and then obviously they ended up winning it in overtime. So I think that's another thing as well when you talk about penalties. I know that the refs are brought in quite a lot when it comes to the Chiefs. And I think I don't know whether you saw the post that I put in the Fourth and Inches group chat, and it was about actually the meta statistics on it, and the Chiefs are actually one of the most penalised over the course of the last, since Mahomes has been in, one of the most penalised teams. But obviously people don't remember that. But I think when it comes to playoff football, they tend to eliminate those silly fouls. So the things like lining up offside, when you think about Kadarius Toney, last season with that incredible lateral play that was called back for his toenail being offsides, and then you've got the D Ford offsides that eliminated potentially Mahomes having another Super Bowl ring. I think, particularly in the last 3 seasons, they don't turn the ball over, or they don't give daft penalties away like that. So you've got the turnover battle, and then you've got that aspect as well. And then when you flip that with the other team, and other teams are still making those mistakes, sometimes questionable, like the roughing the passer call on Will Anderson, then obviously that's factored in. I mean, it's all complementary. I think it's all factored in to why the Chiefs have been so successful and why the Chiefs fans tend to be confident. But, and I'll go back to what I keep saying about the Bills, that they're there. They're like there. So I think in terms of how the Chiefs do things, they're very much a mirror image football team in that aspect. That's kind of what worries me.
Yeah, it is one of those ones where I am finding it awfully hard to predict the winner here, because I think with the Eagles Commanders, I'll keep that spoiler alive, because there is another episode that has been released on Thursday. It's probably been released Thursday night, if not Friday morning. But there has been a podcast released, our first game, which is Commanders Eagles. I won't give away what I gave there, what I predicted there, and I think that was a bit more easier for me to predict. But I found this game incredibly hard to predict, because on the one hand, I'm saying all year that I do believe that'll be either Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen lifting that AFC title. But with how Bills almost lost that game against the Ravens, it does worry me about their defense and living up to a team that like has obviously Mahomes and Kelsey and Pacheco. That trio is going to cause tremendous problems for this Bills defense, and the O line, I think, has been it's this is I think this is such a hard game. We will get into our predictions very shortly, but yeah, it's incredibly tough to call, and I don't know how you guys manage these big games, because I've never seen a team win a playoff game. I've never seen us playing around past the wildcard round. I'm for me, I'm not used to being able to handle being good. I'm so used to going into wildcard games or expecting the worst. Anything more is a bonus. So how do you manage it? Because you've had to experience this, albeit it's a nice problem to have. I think winning 3 Super Bowls, 7 straight AFC Championship games, it's obviously a nice problem to have. But I can't think, and I don't know how, because as a Liverpool fan, I find it I never find that enjoyable watching my team, because I'm always so stressed on the big moments and these big games. How do you manage it? How do you manage every big game, every playoff game you're in? How do you manage that stress?
It's so different every season. So 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, when we lost against Tampa in the Super Bowl, I didn't. No, sorry, that was 4 seasons ago now, wasn't it? Because we lost in the AFC Championship game the year after. I wasn't really that nervous, and then the year that we beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I was really, really nervous that year, because it was like we were climbing back to the top of the tree. We'd been the best team. We'd won a Super Bowl. We'd got to a Super Bowl. It had been AFC Championship, Super Bowl win, Super Bowl loss, AFC Championship, and then it was the Eagle Super Bowl season. That was the season that I was probably the most nervous, because, well, first of all, that Eagles team was a lights out Eagles team, and I was nervous because I thought this might be the opportunity to be distinguished as a dynasty. But then last season, I wasn't necessarily as nervous, and I think even less so this season, because I think, yes, the three-peat's on, and they would be, and I would never ever shut up about the three-peat if it ever happened. But I think particularly at this stage, maybe if we get to the Super Bowl, I might be nervous about becoming that iconic three-peat team. But at this stage, I think the Bills are such a good team, and I genuinely believe that whoever wins this game will win the Super Bowl. But I think that there's only so much time you can have at the top, isn't there? it's such a cyclical, and the NFL is such a cyclical league, and it's deliberately set up to be a cyclical league where everything is set up for you to not be the best team every season. You've got the draft, you've got the schedule, you've got the cap, you've got so many different things that go towards setting it up to make it almost impossible for a team to have repeated success. That at the moment, I'm just enjoying the ride. I think if we lose, I'll be devastated on Sunday, but I'll be devastated in the moment. And then I think I'll look on reflection and go, this is probably, particularly since I've been following the NFL for about 15 years, probably the best team I've ever seen in the NFL. And I'm going to think that regardless of whether the Chiefs win or lose on Sunday. 7 straight AFC Championship games, 6 of them at Arrowhead. You're going to have, so what is it? The Chiefs have been to 4 Super Bowls, so they've won 4 of those, potentially 5. I think, I don't know. I think at the moment I'm quite relaxed. I'm going to be tense on Sunday, but at the moment I'm just enjoying the ride. And I think, talk to me in a couple of weeks if the Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl. But at the moment, I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying it for what it is. The Chiefs are playing really good football at the moment, turnover free. We've got potentially the best quarterback that's ever lived. I'm just enjoying it.
No, I don't agree with the Mahomes. I think Brady's still the GOAT. I think unless he gets 7 rings, I don't think you can even talk about it. And I think that yeah, we just don't know what's to come. And I think right now, we look at the 3 compared to 7. I think there's no real contest. But I think talent-wise, you can look at him, Aaron Rodgers. But I think, yeah, for me, it's still Brady. Even though as a Dolphins fan, I can't deny it is still Brady.
Yeah, that's why I caveated it with potentially. That's why I put potentially from. But regardless, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's nothing that I ever thought I would ever see in Kansas City. So I'm just enjoying the ride. We've got potentially the greatest tight end ever as well. I don't know if you agree with that one.
No, it's not wrong for me. I think it's a coin flip between them two.
And obviously Tony Gonzalez, who's another Chiefs legend. But I think, and yeah, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying the. I think when Andy Reid leaves, and I don't know how long that's going to be. When Andy Reid leaves, that might be the changing of the guard, and until then, I'm just going to sit back and see where it takes us.
Yeah, I think on that point, I think you look at certainly. I think every player will want to have a Peyton Manning-esque career. They want to end it on a high. He ended the perfect way. He was declining. He was never going to be any good after he was terrible in that last season. But he ended on a way. I think all players want to end their careers out on top, and I think Cal's already alluded to it. You know, he talked about it. You know, in I think on his podcast. But if they do the three-peat, he's going to retire, and I think that's fair enough because not only are you ending on a high, you're ending on making NFL history, and you can't really come back from that. And Reid, you know, he is obviously, we all know he's a fairly old man. He may decide as well, you know what, I've done all I can here. You know, I've made NFL history, the first coach to do it, the first team to do it. I think that could be a possibility as well, that he could hang up his hat, let's say. But let's get on to predictions. First of all, where are you watching the game on Sunday, David? Is it at home? Or are you going out somewhere to watch it? Where are you watching?
I'm just going to watch at home because I'm at work on the Monday morning. So what I'm gonna probably do is have a nap through the first half of the NFC Championship, watch the second half, and then go straight through, and then see if I can get a couple of hours before I go to work in the morning. So yeah, I'll be watching it at home.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I've got that dilemma. I don't know what to do because I normally, you know, regular listeners will know what I do. I normally download the games and watch them on the first half on the way to work, and then second half on my lunch break. But I'm finding I've just noticed it in the last few weeks again. I forgot this happens that when you watch games, if you keep pausing and you keep seeing there's only 20 minutes left, you're thinking, well, it's probably not good overtime here. And I've made a mistake once or twice of accidentally pressing on the screen and it goes on to like you got 4 minutes left and now on like a crucial drive. I'm thinking if I'd seen that in that Ravens game last week, I would have known exactly who won the game. So I am tempted to stay up for it and try and bear through work, but I have been ill in recent days, so I don't know whether that's probably good for my body to be ill off work and then coming to work on the Monday, absolutely knackered. I don't know, but we'll see on that one. I'll decide probably on the day. But yeah, for you, David, I'm going to save my prediction for part two. But for you, David, what is your score prediction for the game on Sunday?
I'm torn, because I think the Chiefs will win. I think it'll certainly be within 7, quite possibly be within 3. But where I'm torn is whether I think it'll be a high scoring game or whether I think it'll be a low scoring game, because I think the Chiefs defense is brilliant, but obviously if it gets into a shootout, Allen and Mahomes will just get their own way if they want to. So I think I'm going to go for. I've not really given this much thought. 27-24 Chiefs.
Okay, I like it. But yeah, that is where we'll end part 1 of our preview of this game. So keep an eye out for part 2 when I speak to returning guest David Kaprosch on his Bills' upcoming game against the Chiefs. But first of all, thanks, David, for coming on for part 1.
No problem, mate.
And we'll see you guys in part 2. So we brought you the Chiefs side in part 1. Now it's part 2, and I'm here for the Bills side. And with me, I've got a returning guest, family member of Hit the Showers, long-time Bills fan, Dave Kaprosch. Dave, how are you?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on again. It's been a while. Dude, I love as we were saying earlier, dude, I love the growth on the face, man. Look at you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's changed. A lot's changed since we last spoke, and I've the beard sort of comes and goes, but the hair I'm trying to a little bit grow a bit longer just to make the most, because I'm now 30, so I don't want to be I could easily lose my hair in a few years. You never know. So I want to make the most of having the hair before the inevitable day comes and I lose it all.
Absolutely, I love it.
So yeah, we are here for part 2, and you are, of course, as you all know from your previous episodes, and I've been out to see you in Buffalo, and I've met you in Detroit. Of course, you were at the game on Sunday, just gone against the Ravens in Buffalo. What is the final game of the season in Highmark Stadium? Just what was that atmosphere like? Because it's only the second time in the last many years you've made this stage of the playoffs now. Just what was that overall atmosphere like, and what was heavy snow conditions? What was just the atmosphere like on Sunday, just before the game, during the game, and then when you won the game as well?
Well, first we'll start with, we had a legendary tailgate for sure. So we'll start with that.
Go for it. I want to hear more about
that. Yeah, we had the food going, the cocktails were going, the shot table was going, making money for a local charity that I've been doing stuff with this season, and moving forward with them as well. Probably the next year after that, depending on as long as my page keeps going and we can help out the local charity, that's fantastic. But yeah, the atmosphere, getting into the building, Ryan Fitzpatrick prior to the game and getting the crowd, they pick a legend of the game every home game, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was up front and center, man, and he did not disappoint, taking off his shirt, and the place was just bananas when that all happened. The game itself, I mean, you guys watched it. Right down to the end, poor Andrews dropping it. I was guaranteeing that we were, with a minute and a half left, either, Josh was going to get us in the field goal range, or we were looking at overtime. And, he dropped that pass, and I just felt horrible for him. And then, everything that led after that game, and kind of the same thing that Tyler Bass went through last year when he missed a field goal against KC, the threats and the this and the that. And it's ridiculous. And of course, Bills Mafia being Bills Mafia, man, they stepped up again and donated, last I saw, $96,000 American towards his foundation. So hats off to my fan base. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible gesture, because it's not like it's a Bills player, it's an opposition player, and I think I think I've already said before that you guys are one of the best fan bases in the league, if not the best. And I think it just proves it again that, you saw it with Andy Dawson's charity many years ago when he helped you guys make the playoffs for the first time in so many years. And now to do this, I think it's just an incredible gesture, and just goes to show that despite all the all the negativity, all the death threats, there are good people in this world. So yeah, that was really cool to see. I remember when I went to a game with you, and there was maybe a fan or two that weren't chanting on around you. There was a few fans. I think they were younger fans, but they weren't making much noise. I remember you didn't take to that too well. I think you wanted everyone to make noise. So was there any of that on Sunday? Was everyone just? I'm guessing everyone's just in full voice. Everyone's just fully going for it.
It was full throat. I mean, everybody in the building. And not to say it wasn't loud. I mean, it was deafening at times. But for me, being in that building for so long, I think it still could have gotten a little bit louder. But not the nit. But yeah, the place was jumping. I mean, I don't know how loud it sounded on TV. My girlfriend she said it sounded pretty loud, the majority of the time. And I was, as you follow along on my page, and I don't beg, but I'm begging people Sunday morning. I said, you got to bring it. Give me 3 hours. Because this, we knew our fate, win or lose. We were going to Kansas City with a win. And like, you know what? You'll get your voice back by September. Just give me 3 hours of your time if you're in that building. And they did not disappoint. So.
And of course, you also were at that game. Obviously, there'll be a lot of memories brought back to the divisional round game in 2021. For me personally, my 14 years being a fan of the sport, the best game I've ever seen. Unbelievable game. And of course, you were there for it. You told me all about it in person, about what the experience was like going to Arrowhead all those years ago. What was that experience like for you in terms of being at the stadium and just obviously, you've always told me before about the experience of losing games, such a crazy game, but to tell the audience about your experience of experiencing that 13-second game between the Bills and the Chiefs.
And I think both fan bases at the end of it were just stunned at how it finished, how it got to that point, to get to overtime. Yeah, it was. That's outside of my own stadium and here in Orchard Park. That's my second favorite place to go watch a game. The fans they're into it. The tailgate is awesome. They're football fans and through and through. And, and I'll be there Sunday. So I expect the same. It was kind of last minute, but an opportunity fell in my lap. So I got to go. So hopefully we're not dealing with 13 seconds like we did, 2 years. Hopefully, we could win, and maybe not comfortably, but make it a convincing, win. That's fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be a cracking game. For me, it's a very much a double-edged sword for me because on the one hand, as much as I love you guys, I can't see a division rival do well. It's just as much as I'll be so happy for you and all the friends I've made who are Bills fans. I find it hard to see the Bills win this game, but also I want something fresh. I don't want to see the Chiefs again in the Super Bowl. I want something different, whether that's Bills Eagles or Bills Commanders. I just want a fresh Super Bowl. I don't want a repeat Super Bowl like we had last year. So I am rooting for you when I normally wouldn't be, but then ultimately I will be rooting for the NFC regardless, whoever wins that game. But yeah, it's going to be a crack of a game, and you've got, we all know what the Chiefs, what they've done the last few years. It's, they're a winning team, and the fact they're 15-2 without really playing well is scary. But on the flip side, Josh Allen is an MVP front runner for a reason, and this Bills team have been excellent as well. So it's just going to be a fantastic game. And I think what we saw with you guys against the Ravens, I found, was that they made the most of the mistakes from Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews in particular. And I think you aren't going to get a Chiefs team that's going to make the same mistakes they did. They're not going to fumble. They're not going to, Mahomes may throw one pick, but I doubt it'll be more than that. And you've got to make the most of every chance you get, because this Chiefs team don't make too many mistakes, and you've got to make the most of the chance you get, like the Bengals did in 2022 or 2021. Yeah, I think it was 2021. You got to make the most of the chances you get. And so how crucial is that for the Bills, just to really be, first of all, faultless, make no mistakes like against the Ravens, and just really capitalize on any mistakes the Chiefs make?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why the Bills finished probably top 2 in takeaways. Um, it's what they thrived on all year. But like you said, it's a Chiefs team that they wait for you to make the mistake, because that's kind of what they did all season. I mean, you look at, I mean, they've won in the craziest of fashions: a block field goal, a field goal that bounced in, a field goal that bounced out. You know the I'm not going to get into the refereeing thing, because that's kind of exhausted with the Chiefs and the calls they get, and I mean, some of them are head scratchers, and I you know what, I'm ready for my team to go in there. And the Bills played a clean game last week, and I'm hoping for another clean game this week. I think hopefully the playoffs. I don't know as a whole. I didn't watch every game, but just let them play, man. Unless it's that egregious of a penalty, just let them play. Let them play. And may the best team win. I mean, the old cliche, just make the best team win, without all the BS of that call should have been made and this call shouldn't have been made. Just we can. I mean, there's not a game in NFL football where since the beginning of time where you can't go back and go, well, that shouldn't have happened and this shouldn't have happened. We dude, Andy, we'll be here all night talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, if you're going to lose a game, you want to lose it sort of with no sort of regret. I think you don't want to be sitting here like the Bengals did a year later after beating them and wondering, what if the referees hadn't made the bad calls. But I thought the one against one against Texans on Mahomes last week was crazy to me. The way he just slowed down and allowed them to hit him. I thought that was for me a crazy rule. Crazy decision. Now, of course, Josh Allen actually is the quarterback with the most wins against Patrick Mahomes, but he's also 0-3 against him in the playoffs, and that is because how important is that? Because we looked at, I view as very much the same as Manning against Brady. Every year, Brady would beat Manning, like Mahomes beat Allen in the big games, but eventually Peyton Manning beat Tom Brady, and eventually Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, for that matter, have to beat him at some point. So how crucial is it for the Bills' legacy, for the Bills team, to finally beat the Mahomes when it matters? Because they're the only team to beat their starters in the regular season this year. I think it was week 10 or week 9. But they can never quite get done in the playoffs. And so how important is that, for this Bills team to finally overcome the demon they have and their kryptonite when it comes to the playoffs?
You said it perfectly. I mean, it's as everybody said, they got to storm the castle once again and exercise that playoff demon that they just can't, they haven't been able to get past it. And this is the healthiest Bills team going into a game like this since Josh has been here, since McDermott and Bean have taken over. And we all know in this league, health is huge. You hate injuries. I want both teams to come in healthy, so there's no excuse. Just, let's strap it up. Let's strap it up and let's go. And I expect that on Sunday. I mean, these teams are going to go at each other. We've played them now twice in the last, 4 times in the last 2 years. Here we go. I mean, it's almost like playing a divisional. They said it today. It's almost like a divisional game because we've played them so much, over the last 4 years. And Sunday will be no different. Oh, what we do, we know what they do, back and forth. And it's just going to come down to execution and who, the saying in our locker room in Buffalo is, don't blink. Don't blink. Von Miller, he says it all the time. Just, you're down. They've done it all year. Especially in this building. Behind, out of the 8 home games, trailing 5 of the 8. And I think 4 of those, they were trailing at halftime. So they go in the second half and make their adjustments. And, so it's definitely going to be 4 quarters of football. Absolutely. And I don't think any lead is safe side, whether the Chiefs get up early or the Bills get up early. I mean, it's going to be a heavyweight match.
Yeah, I do believe that this game is going to be one where, it is that old cliche of whoever has the ball last wins. I mean, it's going to be back and forth. I think, I think it's going to be whether it's Josh Allen's legs causing magic, or whether it's Patrick Mahomes doing his thing, or I think there's the defense. I think Spag's defense is really impressive. The Bills' defense a bit hit and miss, but I think it's going to be just absolute cinema. I think that it's going to be. I think it could be a game for the ages. I really do think it could be one of those games for the ages. And you think about Josh Allen and not just him, but I think James Cook. I mean, James Cook is proven to be such a valuable asset to this team. I mean, 16 touchdowns rushing this year, tied for the most in the NFL in 2024. Just how crucial do you think he'll be as well? Because everyone's focusing on Josh Allen. They're all focusing on Patrick Mahomes. But James Cook is proving, I think, this season especially, as crucial to the Bills as Josh Allen. He's been so good, almost been, especially with the loss of Diggs, loss of Gabe Davis. Everyone was writing off the Bills, but myself included, start of the year. I didn't think I thought they'd be the 50 start of the year. I thought they'd lose to the Dolphins, which proved to be horrendously wrong, a prediction. But I think with all the receivers going and Kincaid maybe not having the impact we thought we would in his second season, just how crucial has he been to you? But also how crucial do you think he will be on Sunday to this Bills winning the game? Because the Chiefs, it's a tough ask, but James Cook could be the key to this game for the Bills.
With the Bills playing these last two opponents, Denver and Baltimore, you had that led the league in sacks. They're tough against the run, and they dropped 200 yards against them with Cook and Josh combined. Cook running for over a buck. And Baltimore is a more physical, they're more stout defensive line that they went against, and at times they ran the ball well against them too. It all starts with our offensive line. They've been absolutely nothing short. I hate to use the words amazing, but they've been very efficient this year and healthy. From McGovern at center, all the way to the tackles of Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins and Osiris Torrance. If you pull up some of the film from the Chiefs game here, you can't move the guy. Chris Jones had a tough time against him, and I guarantee Chris Jones is going to be flip-flopping like he always does anyway across that the D-line. So kudos to the offensive line for the Bills this year. I mean, I think they're going to be able to run against this defense. Spagnuolo's got it. He always comes up with something defensively for the Chiefs, and I expect nothing short of that. And again, it's going to be just a battle of attrition, man, on Sunday. I mean, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to get in that building once again and witness this.
Yeah. So how are you doing it? Are you getting there for the day and come back on the same day? Are you going to make a weekend of it? Maybe leave on the Friday? How's your sort of agenda in terms of the trip? What's your plans like? What time, when are you arriving, when are you leaving?
Well, I looked at flights probably a week and a half ago, and I probably should have jumped on it then. So I was basically going to go, and then an opportunity kind of fell in my lap, and the opportunity was just get to Kansas City. And I'm thinking, okay. So long story short, the flights out of Buffalo were just insane. Once the game ended on Sunday, it's like anything, supply and demand. The airlines know that, and you're flying out of Buffalo to get to Kansas City. So, we're talking, it was almost $1,000 American, to fly out of Buffalo. So Dave being Dave, we'll look at the options. I'm 3 hours to Cleveland. I'm 3 hours to Pittsburgh, hour and a half, 2 hours to Toronto. So we did some homework, and I will be flying out of Cleveland, Ohio, Saturday morning to get to Kansas City. And I'll get into Kansas City. I'll get into Kansas City before lunchtime on Saturday. So we'll get into all the festivities and the Bills backers that, the two big clubs, the two places that they meet down there. We'll get in there early and often, and we'll have a good time leading into the game on Sunday.
That should be amazing. I mean, when I went to a game there, I didn't really actually get to experience the place too much. I got there. I'd been in a game in Minnesota on a Sunday. I arrived in Kansas City about 3 a.m. on the Monday morning. Then I had a lie-in, woke up about 12:01, had a little walk around, had some barbecue, but I didn't really get to see much of Kansas City. So I have to ask you how good it is there, because I don't really, all I did there was you wake up, have some barbecue, walk to the stadium, or get an Uber to the stadium, and then watch the game and then leave the next day. So I didn't really get to experience much of the place, really. So yeah, I'm intrigued to know what you can do there because you'll be there for what sounds like at least 2 days, if not more. So yeah, hopefully it's not going to be too bad of a place to experience. But going back to the game, I think you mentioned that the defense there, and I think how much Joe Mixon ran up on them last week. I think it just goes to even more to show the impact James Cook could have. But who sort of someone else you think could be, whether it's on defense or offense or even special teams, who do you think could be a guy that comes out of nowhere? Like we saw Gabe Davis have a 4-touchdown game 3 years ago in that game. So who are you sort of earmarking as someone on either side of the ball that could be go under the radar or could be someone that really comes out of nowhere and has a infamous performance?
I still got my money on Amari Cooper. They made the trade for him from Cleveland, earlier in the year. He had one target, one catch for like 5 yards, I think, on Sunday. And it's great because there's no attitudes are checked at the door in one Bills drive. So, this time of year especially, I would love to see him break out. I think Samuel could be, with his speed, he could be a factor. Because he's been kind of quiet. He had that touchdown catch in the Denver game. He had a couple of key first down grabs on Sunday. Khalil Shakir, I mean, the secret is no more a secret with him. So the slot guy. Defensively, there could be somebody. I mean, could be Matt Milano. He's finally got the traction under his feet now. Since he's been back to IR, he's slowly getting back to Matt Milano. He had a big tip pass on that first 2-point conversion for Baltimore. On the second one, he was already dealing with a sore hammy, so he was out on that game, possibly tying 2-pointer. But defensively, he could be the one. Ed Oliver, he had a great game against Baltimore. I mean, Damar Hamlin, he's been very steady back there this year, despite even some Bills fans not digging him being out there, but he's been steady. He got a sack and caused a fumble, a huge fumble, early in that game, last week on Lamar. So I don't know. It's been a group. It's been such a group effort this year, especially the playoffs with this team. There's no, like I said, they're checking the egos at the door, and you could probably read between the tea leaves on that one, number 14, no longer. It's been huge, the mantra all seasons, but everybody eats. And I think that goes as well for the offense as well as the defense. I think it's just everybody, it's such a cohesive group right now. It's amazing. They're so calm and cool right now. They have been all season, leading into Baltimore, leading into Denver. They're getting their work in, and Sunday's another opportunity. It's just kind of how they're looking at it. They know how big of obviously the prize at the end of this is big, but they're, to a man, with the interviews this week, we're just going about our business. Nothing special. You do your job. Mac Hollins, coming from that Philly team that won a title. I'm guaranteeing, and Von Miller as well. They've been there, and I think they're and it's huge. The Mac Hollins acquisition, in the spring, everybody kind of poo-pooed it, but he's been such a vital piece in that locker room this year. And just with who he is, he just barefoot and just doesn't care. And every pregame when you see him walking in, he's wearing a different outfit, man. It's hysterical, and the fan base has so embraced it, and he's just having a blast. And I hope it could be him Sunday. He had a big grab Sunday against Baltimore, and and Josh trusts everybody in that offense, and he is no different. And he could be the difference maker on Sunday, which would be outstanding.
Right, here we go. Prediction time. So we had David in part one. As a Chiefs fan, of course, he picks his own team to win the game. So David, over to you. What is your score prediction for Sunday?
I mean, I think they're finally just gonna just exercise this playoff demon against this franchise, and this game could easily get into the 30s. The weather will not be a factor. Of course, as you know, I always do a weather forecast, but right now it looks light winds, a fast track, no precipitation, no snow, no rain, low 30s Fahrenheit. Probably upper 20s. By the end of the game. I could definitely see a 34-31 finish on this.
Interesting. Now, I said I saved my prediction for part 2, so I'm going to give mine in a minute. I realised I never actually gave my score prediction for Eagles Commanders in our preview for that game. I said Eagles win, so I think they're going to win by 36-26. So this game, Bills Chiefs. Now, we got one each. It's up to me to decide who wins this game. Now, do I go Chiefs? Do I go Bills? I think it's the Bills' time. I do. I think the Bills win this game. I said it earlier on. I've used this analogy already, but Brady always beat Manning, but eventually Manning got the better of him. And I think at some point he's going to have to beat him. And I think this is the time. This is the Bills' time to finally avenge all the playoff demons. And I can see Tyler Bass avenging his demons and getting a game-winning field goal. And I'm going to go for a 27-24 win for the Bills. But yeah, that is where you will end part 2 of our Bills Chiefs preview. So once again, thank you for coming on, David.
Andy, it's so good to see you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this game, it could end up as one of the classics. Kind of like it was 2 years ago. We could see it. You could easily see something like that, no question. Again, with weather not being a factor, you're not looking at the Freeze Bowl against Miami like last year. Yeah, gonna just let their hair down and just get after it. I can't wait. I can't wait. It's gonna be a sleepless night Saturday night in Kansas City, at least for me.
And of course, could the Bills be there in the Super Bowl? I'll be there. I'll be bringing you guys content along the way, so keep an eye out for that in the whole Super Bowl week of my time in New Orleans. Now, David, if the Bills are to win, will I be seeing you in New Orleans? Will you be making the trip over?
Oh, probably not. I want to be. I know a couple of people have already reached out and asked, and my Patty and I, my girl, we've talked about it a little since this team's been winning. I did 3 out of the 4 in the 90s. I mean, I know the experience is like, and it's probably a lot different now 30 years later. But no, I think I want to be here. I want to be in Buffalo for that day to be I call it ground zero. I want to be at ground zero, and I don't want to be stuck in a city, and I'll be itching to get home. And I mean, yeah, New Orleans is central time zone, and it's not like the West Coast, which will be the next 3 Super Bowls, as I did my homework. Yeah, I want to be in Buffalo. I definitely want to be in Buffalo.
I get that. I think there's definitely like a thing that I've seen going around before. I've been on a podcast where they've talked about it as a guest, or I've heard on Twitter where would you rather watch it in a city, say, especially if you're from the area, is that thing where whether you'd rather watch it amongst your people in the city you love and you're from, or whether you're there. So I think there's definitely, I've seen like the streets of Philadelphia after they won it, and the streets of Boston and Kansas City, and I think there's definitely an argument to be made for that, because Super Bowl, as good as it is, it will be very much, there'll be fans of both teams, there'll be neutral fans, there'll be a lot of celebrities, because mainly due to the price of tickets. But I think when you got a place where, especially Buffalo, where that is the heart and soul of your team. Think of the Rams when they won it. You got the Lakers, you got the Dodgers. Think about Boston, you got the Bruins, the Celtics. Whereas Buffalo, you got the Sabres. But I think if they feel like the Bills is the heart and soul of that city. So I think if you can be there, even just when if they reach it, and being there for that part of it, and then hopefully win it as well for you guys, it'll be magical. I think especially the first one as well. I think you look at Patriots and Chiefs fans, they've won it before, probably not quite the excitement as much as the first one, but I think if you can win your first one, I think that would be something that would be just an amazing experience. But that is where we'll end the podcast for today. This has been our Bills Chiefs 2-part preview, and we'll see you guys for the review of the Conference Championship. See you then.